When you are outnumbered, outgunned, and even outclassed, it's time to call in the artillery. The artillery turret is a very overlooked skill, appearing in only one of the 50 build guides I watched recently, which is a huge shame as it is a very powerful skill that opens up a playstyle with this build unlike any other in the game. Even the way the turret works is unique, as you retain complete control over it, selecting a target zone with the left bumper. Double tap the left bumper though and the target is fixed, letting you bombard a spawn point with ease. The turret also has an insanely long range, making it very effective in taking control points, but it's even stronger at close range where you can spam hard hitting explosives quickly. So this is a skill build? Well, no, because not only does the turret deal explosive damage, it also applies bleed, and if you are ever combining a status effect with explosives in a build, then the Varl Mask immediately becomes a must-use item, and that is because the Varl Mask supplies a debuff based off your status effects attributes and the damage of your concussion grenade, which is increased by buffing explosive damage. On top of that, I am using the Jammer Pulse, which applies the disrupt status effect and procs the Varl Mask to everything within 30 meters, even if I can't see them. So this is a status effect build? Well, no, because this build also deals great weapon damage. So let's have a look at how this hybrid build works. To use the artillery turret, you have to run the demolitionist specialization, which also buffs explosive damage by 10%. China Light Industries brand set buffs this by another 15%, while two pieces of Grupo would provide a further 20% buff, but because this build is balanced across three sources of damage output, I've not gone that route. Buffs to status effects are coming from one piece of Electric brand set, which adds 10%, one piece of Golden Gear for a further 10%, and status effects attributes rolled onto every piece of gear, bringing the total status effects to 80%. Combine this with the 1.8 million damage that my concussion grenade does, and the Varl Mask debuff will be hitting for a whopping 1.6 million. With 5 yellow cores, which absolutely could be 6 if you want, there is only one weapon that makes sense for this build: the Capacitor, whose damage scales off both yellow and red cores. I'm also using the Anarchist Cookbook backpack, which comes with the talent Perfectly Wicked and its 18% weapon damage buff. This is up for a ridiculously long 27 seconds after a status effect is applied, so should be up all of the time. The Capacitor comes with some great mods, adding 10% critical hit chance and 30% critical hit damage, so it makes sense to lean into this with a crit based build. I am running one piece of Seska for its 10% critical hit chance. I have rolled the second stats on 3 pieces of gear to either critical hit chance or damage, and I am running 1 critical hit chance and 2 critical hit damage mods. All of this gets the build to 48% critical hit chance and 111% critical hit damage, which is very solid for a build that puts out damage in multiple ways. The final piece of the puzzle with damage output is the chest piece talent, Glass Cannon, that buffs all damage by 25%. So let's look at the damage output with all this in place. Firstly, the Jammer Pulse. Each tick hits for around 110,000 damage, and just one application of the Varl Mask debuff is enough to bring red bar enemies close to death. But what about the artillery turret? The initial explosion hits for around 2.5 million of damage, slightly more to enemies with armor due to the 12% damage to armor on the Capacitor. The Varl Mask debuff and bleed damage then kick in, with each tick hitting for around 200,000 combined, which is enough damage to kill everything below an elite. And finally, weapon damage. Unbuffed, the Capacitor crits for around 310,000 on a body shot, with just under 2 million DPS, but with Perfectly Wicked active, crits increase to nearly 370,000, and you should be able to maintain DPS in excess of 2 million. Of course, there is one downside to Glass Cannon: the 50% extra damage that you take, and that is why I decided to run 2 pieces of the Golden Gear brand set for its 1.5% armor regen, and also have 2 attributes rolled to armor regen. It is impossible to completely avoid getting hit, and so having reasonable armor regen makes a big difference to survivability. If you are looking for a different way to play the game, then this is a build that I would very much recommend that you try out. But if you are looking for something more mainstream, then check out this video here to find out what is hot and what is not in the build guides right now.